universe? Welcome to Pickathon Podcast, episode 19. I am your host, Zale and I'm the founder of the Pickathon Music Festival. This is a podcast about discovery and kind of going through creative journeys, origin stories, transcendent, things that happen in life, including the festival, but also just the people we talk to. Today, I'm going to have a really amazing guest, Michael Ruth from the kind of transcendent genre style band called Rich Ruth. And I'm excited because I think there's a lot of connections there that we're going to get into. But, one of the things that I think this story, this episode, and timeliness is going on is, in a lot of ways, Rich is like a journey, a transcendent journey of kind of past and pulling together, going through meditation and healing and dealing with trauma and surrendering and kind of finding peace. That's kind of a quote that we'll maybe talk to a bit. When you finish something really big, and we're just done with Pickathon 2023 this year, you have this really big high. And the way I like to kind of talk about it is, again, you can't understand unless you come. This is an experience, a transcendental kind of human experiential experience that is much bigger than the sum of its parts. And the feeling from that is from just the audience, from the staff, it's wonderful. And there's always things that we kind of look to kind of think about that to be reflective on appreciating, and always things that about we want to improve. And my feeling is that you have to be open in these kind of experiences when you go through them, even if you feel like wherever you were in terms was a great moment, and the staff and the people that came, everyone is happy. There's always work. There's always things to kind of reflect on. And we're in this middle of this, maybe we're one of the only festivals I know that does such a transparent survey to our fans. And kind of our whole idea here is, what do you want this to be? Like, how did we meet? How did we do this year? How did we do versus previous years? How did we kind of, did we hit the mark in kind of our art and our literature and wellness and all these kind of like cultural things that we're trying to kind of bring together into one experience, along with this music and along with the art, along with kind of integrating kind of venues into the landscape. We are not open to, we're just, we're excited to get the kind of amazing kind of feedback like we got from Pace this year, called us kind of the best indie festival in the country. But we're also wanting just to kind of be a little real and dig a little deeper and think about, because we have a big journey ahead of us in terms of, this is a very irrational event. We play kind of a best national event or indie festival on TV, but we're not huge. We're like a 20th of kind of the people we're up against. And our lineup is mostly a discovery lineup. Although if you kind of, even right now, you start to look back, you're like, oh yeah, all these bands are blowing up, which happens every year. And it's just about having faith in the essence of where the music scenes are at. But all that is said, we want to grow, we want to improve, and we have some challenges. And so kind of being open and really kind of building the strongest thing that we can, that will help us kind of deal with any things that we need to work on, any traumas, any kind of healing, any kind of, things we could do better. Specifically, yes, there's the experience, but we're also, this feedback comes from, the community, because there's a real sense of, can Pickathon as an event in an urban landscape that's, we're not sitting on like piles of money from major corporations that can kind of just buy this land. So it's going to be a much more organic way that Pickathon becomes permanent. But there's a real kind of contingency that we've talked about a little bit. We'll start to talk about more, which is, this journey of how we can not only continue to improve, but find conversation with the city of Happy Valley and the neighborhood and the landowners, Pendarvises, where's this journey taking us? And we don't know yet. We're like vulnerable. Feels like there could be a lot of things that, don't end well, but they could end well too. So like the real strength and intuition here is be open to getting good and bad feedback. That will make you stronger. And if you are able to just kind of take it on head on, like send it to us, like there's nothing that if you just surrender to that kind of introspection, it's only going to kind of help you grow. And that's kind of like also, I think, how people become more invested. They just feel like you're listening. This is actually reflecting kind of the sensibilities and what people who've been coming really want to see. Like, we asked a lot of interesting questions besides like, do you want us to have more people and have less ticket expenses? We purposely hold the audience down by, a factor of 3, 5x. Could just be a lot more crowded and we could have cheaper tickets. But part of that has always been the density is why people they love the kind of intimacy of being able right there with the artist. And the conversation is, what should we do with like more expensive tickets? Are we in the right balance? Should we have less people, more expensive, more people, less expensive tickets? And I don't know the answer. So that's one of the kind of things that we're asking. And then another one is we had a surprisingly strong lineup this year. And I think everybody felt like it was our best festival ever. But going into it, there was a lot of interesting kind of comments. Like, this is a year where I really don't know anybody, although it ended with folks thinking that was the best lineup. And the whole point here of Pickathon, part of it has always been, yes, we do have people, occasionally the headliners, but we aren't these are the folks that made it doing victory laps kind of festival, which is how the festival industry is kind of built. It's just like, you're going for the draw. You're basically stacking it. They might not even have had an album in the last 30 years, but you just love this record. Love this artist because you grew up with it. And there's no issues with that. We're very much like this sense of like the essence of music scenes. We dig in deep. We open source this. We pull it together. And we think it matters because this idea of kind of bringing all this music together makes all these genres stronger. There were so many kids and teens there that were having their minds blown. Like they were literally rewiring what is popular music in their thoughts and heads. You could see it in real time, whether it was like Zale or, seeing Alice and Tatiana, like Old Time, or Rich Ruth, who we'll talk here today, just kind of space and jazz, and, Butcher Brown on the kind of jazz rap fusion, and, just on and on. All of it kind of made sense. And when you saw it, you were blown away by it. And the big question there on our survey kind of is, hey, is this what you like? Because it's hard for us. You have to drag people that never been, then they get it. But we could make it a lot easier if we added some more headliners or focused on that. And then maybe we didn't quite as quality discovery, which kind of breaks our heart, or we have some more headliners and we charge 10% more for tickets. All of these are hard decisions, and we trying to make us better and not think we know this answer, and being open and vulnerable is kind of like is the point. And I think that same idea is going to be listening to the community and looking forward, and and the farm owners and ourselves, and what can we pull off, what's possible in terms of the future of this festival and where we are, and kind of creating some kind of experiential thing that lasts forever, which is our aspirations. And so it's a journey. I don't have any clue of how much tilting at the windmill that's going to be, but we'll keep talking about it as it develops. This will be a big fall, winter for that. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of go down there. But I'm also excited to kind of like hear and talk about this kind of introspection and manifestation and healing and stuff with our musical guest today, Michael Ruth from Rich Ruth. Welcome, Michael.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, it was really well. Since you were one of the guests this year, how was your time at the festival this year?
Oh man, it was phenomenal. I had such a good time. It was nice. I literally just got home 2 days ago from like I was out for the past month touring with SG Goodman. So I actually flew out to Pickathon in the middle of the tour and then met them
Nice.
back in Richmond. So it was on another level. It was like a nice, just very different change of pace for me. And yeah, it was great. I had so many friends that I already knew that were playing and that I don't get to see very often. And yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah, did you actually play the festival with SG the year before?
Yeah, I played it last year, and I had a really good time. And it's it was one of those things I'd heard about from other musicians. I have a handful of friends out in the Portland area that have been going every year for the past like decade, and just always seemed like one of the coolest festivals. And so after last year, I just like made sure and hit up my agent, was like, are we submitted for this? Like, I definitely want to at least try to play it if they'll have me. So yeah.
They High Road, right?
Yeah.
Your agent. They went to bat for you, which I really appreciated. It was kind of like, if there's something that we have that we think is that's going to be really totally most ideal for you guys, it's Rich Ruth. You guys should.
Oh man.
He's incredible, and so hats off to them. They definitely made it a big deal, and we knew. We listened, and I mean, there's a lot of labels. It's interesting because thinking of it's ambient, new age, spiritual jazz, kind of cosmic rock, a little
Hmm.
minimalist. Those are
Yeah.
all things that I kind of think, but I mean, your journey has been interesting. Like you grew up in outside of Toledo, right? In Ohio?
Hmm. Yeah, correct.
Where was that?
Just a little town called Archbold that's like, I don't know, 15 minutes from kind of Michigan and Indiana in the corner there. Pretty small Mennonite farming community.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was music part of that? Like growing up, were you like any music in that?
I mean, there wasn't a whole lot around there, but pretty much as soon as I was able to like get out of there and go to Toledo or Detroit or Cleveland or whatever to go see concerts, any chance I could, I would leave. Yeah.
Where would you go? Where was like the best spots to go?
I
I don't
mean,
know that part of Ohio.
yeah, I mean, Toledo was the closest,
Hmm.
but like it's such I mean, I don't know what it's like now, but it was such a C market for like touring bands back then. So it was kind of like the best you could hope for was like, constantly touring like legacy acts like BB King and like Alice Cooper and stuff, or like
Hmm.
bad like new metal like post grunge bands like Seether and like Breaking Benjamin and all this like not good music.
Ooh.
But I would like go see those, and metal too. There was a lot of metal that came through there, like bands like Lamb of God and Hatebreed and stuff like that. So, but I would go to any of it just because it was like, well, it's here, so I'll go see it. And then would occasionally drive to Detroit or Cleveland, which was like 3 hours away.
I mean,
But yeah.
yeah, and I mean, but is anything notable come out of Toledo when you were there? Like, what was some of the notable
Not
things? I was.
Not in my lifetime. I mean, like there's like a handful of like jazz and blues like kind of sidemen that have come from there, but really, I mean, unless I'm missing something. I mean, Ben Swank, who helps run Third Man, my label that I'm on, he's from Toledo, so we have that in common. But no, there's not. There's a lot of amazing things that have come out of Ohio, obviously, but not Toledo to my knowledge. I mean, there might be something I'm forgetting, but yeah.
Where did you grow up, Mennonite?
I did, yeah. Just like modern, kind of normal,
Modern.
like
Hmm.
Mennonite, not like we had electricity and stuff.
And so, did you like? Were you in music as a kid? Did you like when you were young,
Yeah,
like
I mean, I was in like
singing or piano?
yeah, choir and band and all that in church and stuff, and
Piano.
then yeah, definitely piano, and then yeah, and then just kind of none of that ever really clicked until guitar, and then I started working on that and kind of just became my identity from like 13 onward. So
Was there folks to play with in that area? Did you meet any folks that you started to jam with?
yeah, there was I feel like there was always some good musicians around, which was nice. But yeah, I mean, I started a band in high school, and we would just kind of play wherever we could, whenever we could, and linked up with whatever other young bands were around. And I don't know, I mean, we'd like rent out the Boy Scout cabin, and like a few hundred kids would come out. And I mean, it was kind of cool because there was nothing, and so we created it.
That's pretty awesome, though. A couple hundred
Yeah.
kids in high school at that's actually like a good show.
Yeah, no, looking back, I'm like, that actually worked out okay. It's like more people than I draw sometimes now. So
Was that what was the name of that band? Was that
it was called the Rickshaw.
ooh, that was like prior to your Kansas Bible company, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. That came in college.
Where did you go to college?
Goshen College in Goshen, Indiana. It's a Mennonite, like liberal arts school. Yeah.
And is that close to Bloomington, or what towns is that?
It's closer to South Bend, where Notre Dame is. It's up north, about 2 hours straight east of Chicago.
And so you're mostly going to Chicago to see music, probably there.
Yes. Yeah, at that point. Yeah, definitely.
What was Chicago like in that time? Like, was there some amazing stuff you were seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it was more like just catching like smaller to mid-sized like touring bands I was into, because it was like far enough away that it was hard to be in touch with any like local scene. But I remember seeing like TV on the radio and the Mars Volta and bands like that in like 07, 08. That was in like the Riviera and places like that. But then it was also, we were old enough to like go to festivals, so we would go to Bonnaroo and summer camp and things like that.
Yeah, and the band you started, actually, if I got this right, you had 12 people in the band?
Yeah. There was like, I mean, it
was this like an idealistic college band that we're gonna do it?
It's exactly
all
what
friends,
it was.
good friends,
Friends.
Yeah.
Left college. A couple of the guys like dropped out, took a year off, and we moved to Nashville in 2011.
Wow.
Got a 10-bedroom house that we were able to find.
Oh.
And all lived together, rehearsed every day. And then, I mean, we like hit it pretty hard and toured for 5-6 years as much as we could. We like, never made any money really. It was the classic, like, I feel like that was kind of the end of that era of people doing stuff like that. But, there was
I don't know. I think it's a 20s thing. It's like an early 20s. Yeah. I see it repeated over and over and over, but it has like that finite kind of time in life when you can. Yeah,
before reality creeps in and you're like, people start getting married, or just not. You realize that not everybody like wants to just slog it playing, mediocre shows on the road and like not make any money. Like, you can do that for a couple of years and it's fun, but it starts to wear off if you're not like, wired to like that this is what you want to do.
I mean, and even if you're successful, I think it's tough as you kind of get into your kind of like mid, late 20s. It's just life. Somebody meets a girl, somebody's like, oh shit, I'm not gonna make any money, and like it just and even if you're successful, actually just watch the documentary again, When We Were Brothers, by the band, the band. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I haven't seen that one. No.
Once it was like Once We Were Brothers, or We Were Once Brothers. It's a great documentary about kind of like the peak of that kind of idea of like growing up in when they went to the Big Pink, all living in that house.
Yeah.
Just putting out the most amazing records of all time. And it really only lasted a couple albums,
Yeah. I mean, that's a hard thing to sustain when you have that much history and life together. It's like, people, it's not even growing apart. It's just, it might have been kind of weird from the beginning, but you find this harmony of like working together. But
and you really like each other.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, I mean, we're all still like really good friends, and some of those guys play with me occasionally. Yeah. But as a model of functioning, it's like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, because it's at some point the life part kicks in, right? And you how many of the folks are actually in bands now, like from that?
I would say like 3. And I mean, Sammy, my saxophone player, I met him through that. He was kind of an honorary member. He was like the 13th member. He would play with us sometimes, and but not many. Yeah.
And that went on until 2000, was it? What year did you guys?
Or so?
16?
Yeah.
16?
Yeah.
Did you reset, like, or did you take, I mean, because your first record didn't come out right until 2018?
19.
Right?
Yeah.
19?
Yeah. So
Calming Signals?
Mm-hmm. I pretty much just jumped in with other bands and started touring with different things and was just kind of still pretty busy. Again, not really like making a living or anything, just wanting to do it and trying to do it however I could, but not focusing on my music at all. And then
Who was that? Who were you involved with back then?
For a while, I was with a band called Okie Dokie, and then I toured and played some with a local band called Alana Royale, and some other stuff that just kind of kept me busy. And I just wanted to play. So when the old band fell apart, I just wanted to keep going. And
and Nashville's a really, I know it's changing a lot, but there's I don't know if the old character, but there's just always I picture just an unlimited number of amazing musicians living in that town.
Yeah, definitely. And it has ebbed and flowed a lot in the time I've lived here. And and the whole city has changed so much over the past decade. But there's still,
How has that changed? Like, I'm super curious because, I mean, there's, I wonder, I've noticed a lot of like some really mercurial, like the Mercury, like a lot of the venues, right, are having some struggling now. Some of the all-time venues.
Yeah, we've lost. I mean, in the past, I mean, just since the pandemic, and I don't even know how related it is to that. Maybe a good bit, but I mean, the Exit Inn closed and has now reopened, like under different ownership, and then like the Mercy Lounge, Cannery, and High Watt, which were like 3 venues joined together. Those are all gone.
Recently, right?
Yeah, in the past year or so. And so now there's just kind of a shortage of like mid-sized clubs. And so the ones that we do have, like the Blue Room at Third Man, which they used to only book stuff, once a month or so, like kind of special occasion stuff. They've kind of picked up and filled that role. But it's still great. I mean, it just, it feels like the only constant thing is change here and, people coming and going. So, yeah.
You guys are in the center of like the politics storm. It's just crazy. Just the story is just the dichotomy between like the people who are pretty chill in Nashville overall.
Man, there's so many not chill people coming here. It's ridiculous.
Are they moving there too, or are they actually moving?
They're moving here. Yeah, I mean they're constantly visiting by like the millions, but they're I mean that was a noticeable change too. Like coming out of the pandemic was this influx. I mean that has been the case the whole time I've lived here, but like since COVID, the amount of people from California and New York and stuff that have come here is like. Because I used to wait tables back then at kind of a nice like tapas restaurant, or just have to check people's IDs, and it was like just California after California. I was like, what is happening right now? And it's, I mean, I don't know. It's weird. The character has changed a lot, but there's still the core of great musicians and good people that have been here a long time. And, occasionally some new people show up that are really cool. And the core, in my opinion, is still there. And I feel like I've made a little spot for myself with my friends and my neighborhood and things like that. But
are you friends kind of like across a lot of styles there? Do you know Mr. Billy Strings there lives there? He's a friend.
I haven't seen Billy in years. I know his fiance pretty well. She used to work with my wife. And so, I mean, I've hung out with him a few times, like before it has exploded. But it's beautiful to witness. It's blown my mind. I just got to see him at the Newport Folk Festival headline it, and it was like, it was insane. But I haven't seen him in 5 years or so.
He came to Pickathon kind of as this completely obscure twice, basically. We had him twice, and we even did we used to film a series called Curation where we'd mix an artist and a chef.
Oh, cool.
And we kind of do some creative collaboration. We
Mhm.
visited Nashville when he first moved there,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was still struggling,
Oh, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of living. Did a piece on him, and then it wasn't much later. It was just like, and we love that stuff. I mean, that's kind of like
Yeah.
our hope of like Pickathon, of mixing all these styles, is like it's all amazing. And like when you get exposed to it, some those kind of stories happen, and I just think that some kid that's playing like, hot picking bluegrass that
Oh,
becomes
yeah.
super popular in the
It's
jam scene.
unbelievable. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
It's incredible. Yeah, I don't think anybody could have, like, foreseen how huge he's gotten. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and didn't Tyler Childers play Pickathon back in the day too?
Oh yeah. Does he live there now?
No, well, no, but we just got off with SG Goodman. We just did open for him for the 6 shows or so this past week,
Amazing.
and that was also like, this is insane. It's truly
Right?
unbelievable.
They
Yeah,
hang on every word of his. And he's
yeah.
that good of a singer. I mean, he
Oh,
really
totally.
is.
Yeah, yeah. And he's got the songs to back it up. I mean, and the band too. I mean, I got nothing but amazing things to say about those guys.
Yeah. I wonder, where is he from in Kentucky? Do you know?
I
I always
think
forget. I think it's
outside of Lexington somewhere on the eastern side. I'm not sure
because
exactly.
we had one of his other bands that tours with him, Wayne Graham.
Oh, yeah,
came
yeah.
this
Mhm.
year. That's
Oh,
also
were they
from that
they were out
area.
there this year? Okay.
Yeah, they were there this year. They're friends. I
Yeah.
think SG's friends with them too.
Yeah.
And really great band, like just
Yeah.
totally solid. I went to actually college with University of Kentucky, with the guitar player who's kind of a bit
Wow.
older in that band, and
Mhm.
he's kind of we knew we knew each other. I think he probably played in a basement, in a college basement, in
Wow.
one of his bands one time way back when.
That's
But the rest of
amazing.
that band is like, I don't know, a decade or 15 years younger. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. I mean, growing up, I grew up, yeah, like I said in past episodes, maybe not this one, in Kentucky, northern
Mhm.
Kentucky. So yeah, we've always been kind of like pulling from that area, like um, Sturgill Simpson too, was
Oh,
somebody we
yeah.
had,
Yeah. Mhm.
because he was in a band called Sunday Valley,
Mhm.
that was a bar band in Lexington a lot. They lived in Lexington. Had him as Sunday Valley, had him twice as Sturgill, and that second time we
Ah.
had him as Sturgill, it just blew up. Boom.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and totally awesome, and huge fan. I think he lives down there too right now. Uh,
Yeah.
have you ever been to, like, one of the places in Nashville I've always wanted to go, because I play mandolin? I'm kind of in that world too. Pre-kid, I was in a lot more of a band world than I
Yeah.
was. Festivals kind of became post-kids.
Mhm.
I'll just have this little tiny festival, and then it grew out of control. The Station Inn. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
if
Yeah,
that's
I
a
love
thing
it.
anymore.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a little while, but yeah. I've had a few friends over the years that are kind of in that world, and so yeah, just inevitably wind up there going to see some people here and there. It's amazing. It's like it's really crazy because it's just surrounded by like the worst of Nashville development, but it's still this little, like, holding strong in the middle of the gulch. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, area, is it? So it's just like big hotels. Like, what's
Oh
going
yeah,
around?
just
Like,
like high rise apartments, hotels, like high end restaurants and shopping stuff. Like, yeah, it's like
mm-hmm.
it's where a lot of like people with money go hang out. And yeah, it's just you go in there and it feels like you're stepped back in time like 30 years, and then you step outside and it's like, what is this? But they're still there.
Super improbable that place could even still exist, right? Because it should just probably be scrapped for a giant apartment building,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, yeah, it's like we don't have much left at this point, so I'm glad
Do
they're
do
holding
you
out.
do you see the city kind of? This is an interesting, because that's actually kind of our parallel story, right? Like,
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah.
does stuff get valued? Can it survive what the maximum economic? Even though cultural stuff is kind of Nashville's
Oh, yeah.
thing, right? You take away all the music and the clubs, what the heck is it?
Yeah.
It's not a bunch of
No,
food and
it's just like redneck Disneyland. It's like not, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You go to Europe and places like that, and you're like coming from a city where everything is felt kind of disposable. It's like wow, they like value culture and legacy and heritage and like go out of their way to protect it, and it just doesn't feel like that's the case here from my perspective. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the moment of our times. Like our kind of approach is to kind of like, and I wish it was true during kind of COVID when all of the independent venues kind of connected together and were like,
Mhm.
look, you don't want this stuff to close. If it closes, it's probably not coming
Yeah.
back. And it's like
Yeah, right.
it's the heart of so much of like the country are these
Yeah.
independent venues. And one of them, and as a voice, is not a very big voice, but it can be incredibly historically important place where so much has happened. And if you just if you look at what that spawned, it probably all those independent venues, the things that were discovered there, the artists that grew there, probably drive a large percentage of of what the value of Nashville is, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. Or of any city. I mean, yeah, it's
any
like,
city,
and when you're like on tour all the time, whether you're out opening for bigger bands or just playing, small clubs or whatever, it's like when you're in one of those places, whether you even realize it or not. Like maybe you haven't even heard of the venue, but as soon as you go in there, you're like,
hmm
oh, this place is like 40 years old, and Sonic Youth and Nirvana played here, and like
oh
things like
yeah,
that. It's like you can always feel that once you're there, and it's like the more everything just gets like consumed by Live Nation and all these like conglomerates, it's just like it's not the same.
it's
Just
not the same.
the feeling of being there as a performer is not the same.
Yeah, and that's happening in a lot of cities. Like
Yeah.
Portland and Oregon is there's only there's very few venues in the state, none in Portland, that are owned by Live Nation or
That's
AEG.
incredible. Wow. Good for them.
I know. I think it's the only market, but they're starting to come in. There was a really big festival. On paper it looked great. It was Farewell Festival in Bend a couple weeks
Mhm.
before us. Had Willie Nelson and
Oh,
Zach
yeah, yeah, I
Bryan,
had some
and
friends that played there, yeah. Mhm.
didn't nowhere on it did it say it was Live Nation. Not even close, because people here really do not like Live
Yeah, yeah.
Nation, but it was 100% Live Nation, and
God.
kind of meant to like smoke out all the other festivals. They kind of come in and
Yeah,
they overpay and they drive in and they try to like just take it over. Once they got a handle on no one else survives, then they just they can make them a lot more profitable because no one's left to
yeah.
take on. So we're kind of a weird one because there's not really an easy way to take us on, because you could put on your own discovery lineup, and it's really the fans that have kind of have already come and believe in it.
Yeah, well,
um,
yeah, and it's like it takes years to see like the trust come through with that, where you see these artists
yeah,
get huge 4 years later, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, and independent venues are just like that, right? All over the
Mhm.
country they've curated something that
Yeah.
people come regardless, because this is a venue that they have seen so many things happen and so many artists have happened, and hard to put value. I think if we're not careful, like culturally around the country, we have to value these things a little bit
Yeah,
differently, otherwise
absolutely.
they're yeah. And bands the same way. I kind of think like trying to get from the through that kind of first layer of discovery, right? Like the
Yeah,
trod you have to do, like a badge of honor, to where all of a sudden you can play 1,400 person rooms or
yeah,
whatever the magic number is for becoming sustainable. We're like one of the only countries that doesn't really value that, right? Like
yeah.
help artists.
No,
It's kind
there's
of
no anything to help us do that. It's like you just have to put your entire life on pause and like essentially just wreck yourself. Because if you
yeah,
want to do it, you have to commit fully, unless you catch lightning in a bottle and just get incredibly lucky, which is that doesn't happen much. But
no,
otherwise, yeah, it's like you can, and success can be perceived from the outside, but it's like the financial reality of it is like, it's yeah. I mean, you just feel like I look down the road, and I'm like, I don't know, especially just even just playing with SG and seeing her career, do by a lot of measurements really well, and it's still see the challenges of it. It's just, yeah, it's
Yeah,
wild.
she was on Mark
Yeah.
Maron right after
Yeah.
Pickathon last year.
Yeah.
And, you know, all kinds of like things you would think are happening for her, right? And it's still
Yeah,
probably tough,
she's
right?
selling out rooms and stuff most places she goes, and has like some of the best support slots you could ever dream of. And but it's still not easy, and it's not like it's like
Hmm.
that lucrative. I mean, not to speak out of line or anything, but it's just the reality of
No,
it. It's hard.
it is the reality, and you have to survive that kind of like that time. You know, some people
Yeah.
really do short circuit it. I kind of interviewed some folks on this podcast that have accidentally tripped TikTok, you know, kind of algorithm and
Yeah,
became
yeah.
humongously famous. Didn't even know it for a couple weeks.
Yes, that whole thing is so
Which
weird.
is which yeah, you can that can happen. Or, you know, like ours is we didn't I had a job to 20 years of doing this thing, right? Like this is not like something that paid the bills in a major way.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, the future of this can't survive without kind of all in. But it is resilient. Like if you make it there, and you know, I think from you guys have a very unique sound that is really kind of to me visceral. I just
Yeah, thank
love
you.
like I love that's kind of like a sound bath having this kind of, you know, and I look if I kind of go back to your process, like so you left this and you started really focusing on your own music.
Hmm.
And early on you had kind of a crazy traumatic event, right? It happened to you in Nashville
Yeah. Hmm.
that was partially influencing of where you went. Was that true?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically, I got it was summer of 2018. I just like walked out to my car one day at my house and got held up at gunpoint by these two kids. One of them
Oh,
lived like three houses down from me, and yeah, they stole
oh
my
my
car
God.
and stuff, and so just having to deal with that, and then there was like a series of like other things that I don't
But
necessarily
did you
want to.
know them?
I mean, I had like, we had seen each other before. Yeah, we had like walked past each
I
other on the
mean, it's
street.
so awkward. You know
Yeah,
these kids. You know where they
yeah,
live.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, so this whole thing, and then it spiraled into like a lot of other not
Ah,
good things, and
and
so
you had to move, right?
yeah,
Basically, like
yeah,
that's how bad it got.
no, it was like a few things happened, and we just like had to basically just get out of there, like for safety reasons, and yeah, and
That's
so.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it
ridiculous.
was yeah, it was bad. And yeah, so just I mean just kind of uprooted my entire life along with my wife too. I mean, but she was really supportive and helpful throughout it. But yeah, I mean, so happened to be like writing and working on this music in my home studio like before this was happening, and then kind of was finishing
Hmm.
it on the other side of it. And so it just became hard to like separate my reality, which was like pretty clouded by anxiety and PTSD and
Mm.
all this, and just paranoia and stuff like that. And from the music I was making, and which was instrumental. So it kind of, there's a way of being able to sort of like extract or project like your own emotions onto this canvas. So yeah, so they kind of just became linked together in a way that I never predicted or foresaw. But like, yeah, and then it kept going. And then the last record I put out about a year ago, I wrote and recorded all during COVID, and like Nashville just gotten wrecked by a tornado, and
The
then I was going to,
politics.
yeah, yeah, and all of that, and yeah, and I was going to therapy and doing EMDR stuff and kind of revisiting all this stuff that happened to
Hmm.
me. So it was kind of fresher in my mind, and yeah, so again, it just got wrapped up in all these like intense feelings and the world around me, and yeah, and so yeah,
It's beautiful, and I mean, also I read you had actually kind of inspired by kind of the parks and nature around you too, right? That was like
yeah,
part of the
yeah.
healing.
Yeah, there was just like I mean, especially during the pandemic, I just like ride my bike like a lot and listen to just get absorbed into records, and yeah, it just was like
Hmm.
kind of this meditative time of a year or two that it kind of took me to like just recover and like get back to who I am and figure that out.
It's super experimental and you know, kind of makes me feel when I'm listening to it, it's immersive to me, but it's also like this very present feeling. Like it just makes me want to be present. It's not something I'm listening to like in the background so much. I just feel like I'm there. You know, like you really
Yeah,
kind of make it
thank you.
a present kind of thing. And I'm curious, like there's a lot of an experimental like music in this, and I'm what kind of experimental kind of music from in your past or current were you channeling? Did you have some influences?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to. I try not to pull. I don't ever want to like lift things or like pull
Mm-hmm.
too specifically. So I pretty much kind of start everything out with a blank canvas and just start with sequences or samples or a loop or something, and just to get my mind in a different place, and then start building off of that, and then bringing in other people and just kind of letting them do whatever they're good at and not really telling them directions, because that kind of steers the ship in these new ways. But yeah, but there's always, the essence of different artists that I'm like incredibly inspired by. And I would say for this last record, it was like Tortoise was a big one. And then that
Mm-hmm.
kind of was a move
Amazing
into,
Chicago band.
yeah, yeah. And I'm actually opening for them for a couple shows this fall, which I'm just is a dream.
Oh,
So
huge
yeah,
fan.
yeah, massive
Um,
fan. Yeah.
do you know Riley Walker? Did you ever know him?
I don't know him personally. We have some mutual friends, and I know he's worked with John McIntyre a bunch,
Yep.
and kind of pulls from that same. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. In his best, he gets kind of it's very there's some nuggets I kind of think are
yeah,
interesting.
sort of that side of post rock.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, calling Tortoise post rock is kind of belittling in my
Reductive.
opinion. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I guess there's this catch all for like these bands from this era, but to me, they're just so much more progressive, and
So
it's
much
so
more.
timeless, and but John McIntyre mixed the record. Um,
Oh, that's so
and
great.
yeah, I was kind of revisiting TNT a lot while I was making it, and I've listened to that record most of my life at this point now. Yeah, and then
And a lot of it was remote, right? Like in
it
this
was all
time, you
remote.
guys weren't.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what's nuts. It
nothing on
doesn't
that.
sound
Yeah,
like a. It sounds like a live band.
yeah, it's completely not. Like not. I don't even know. There might have been a point recording a few of the like sax things where I was like in the room with the person, but at the time it was also great because all my touring friends were at home, so like we could all work really quickly, whereas normally it's like if I want like, hey, we record drums on this thing, it's like, yeah, I'll be home in a month, so, and then like you forget about it by then. But yeah, so that was good. Yeah, other touchstones, I mean, I was listening to a lot of Aphex Twin, and not I don't think that
Mm.
necessarily like sonically comes through that much, but it kind of put me in a state of mind where I was like, like I need to stop caring like what I think is safe or like what people will digest. It's like this dude was putting out the most insane records, like
Mm-hmm.
it's so experimental and harsh, and even for me as a fan of that music, it's still like not easy to listen to. Some
Mm-mm.
of it is obviously, but like yeah, and so it was like that, and then listening to a lot of like heavier kind of free leaning jazz, like later Coltrane stuff and McCoy Tyner
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of helped propel my intentions going into the record to be a little more fearless and not care that something was maybe too abrasive or too avant-garde for regular people to digest, because I think I underestimate the average person's ability to enjoy music that's like not, because like, yeah, because
Mm.
Twin has probably sold like millions of records. So
Oh yeah.
why can't you have five saxophones all playing on top of each other for a minute? Like it's not
Yeah.
going to hurt anybody.
No. I mean, if it's in you and you make it, people feel it. You know, I always say like the difference is like, first I always kind of categorize things that I like tend to be little grit or soul, something,
Hmm.
some version of both of those things. And then you just have to believe it. Like there's
Yeah.
something when there's so much passion that it cuts through, and it just like you don't have to question is this person self-doubting, or is this like a cover of something that they're trying to do, right?
Right. No, and that's what I keep learning about this is like, yeah, it's like I'm always second guessing. Like, is this? We did a few shows opening for St. Paul and the Broken Bones this spring, and I was like, this is
How was
like,
that?
it was great. That's the thing. It's like
Yeah.
I'm like these normal people. They're not gonna like it. They're not gonna get it. And it was like they fucking loved it. And I was like, okay, it doesn't. It's like we're just up here doing our thing, which is extremely interactive, extremely like we're focused and engaged with each other. It's like half the set is improvisation. So it's like we don't know where it's going to go. It changes every time. And so bringing that, playing to like 800 people that are like there to see like a soul band, I was like, this isn't going to work. And it did. And so I just, just keep going with it.
That's so great. I think that kind of authenticity of just like, I mean, I kind of always say the same thing to myself is like, I just like, if you stop being if you're trying to chase something that has a formula, right? That has like, or if we were just trying to turn our festival into like a normal festival where we just pop up stages and headliners in the kind of conventional way, you kind of lose the drive to do it. And I thought it kind of eats you from the inside, and all of a sudden there's not really like, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, right?
So, yeah, and people can detect that. And like I think I think and just the more this era keeps continuing, it's like the more something like Pickathon stands out, because it's like it's actually curated by real people with good taste and like and there's like and the genre thing is so open-ended, and that's I think a lot of people listen to music like that, and so why not
exactly.
go to a festival
I do too.
where you can go from hip hop to jazz to a hardcore band, like
yeah. I mean, I honestly do still think that's how most people listen to music. Like
people
even
who
if they
truly love music, that's how they approach it. Like, yeah,
and they love to be blown away. Like like, and so seeing you guys, and what was one of the really fun highlights is you. I'm not sure how I would love to know how it went. Is you brought up Michaela Davis?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was incredible. Yeah, So I did a tour with Circles Around the Sun, this jam band, back in January, and her partner plays guitar in that band. And so some of the shows, she lives in upstate New York, so some of the shows were nearby. So she already had her harp there and was sitting in with those guys. And she actually approached me and wondered if she could sit in. And I was like, yeah, like, of course. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah, like, I've always wanted to have harp on my music, but just never even knew it was a possibility. And so we would bring her up a couple shows, and it just like blew my mind. And just added this kind of like Alice Coltrane element that, and she's
a big fan of.
Yeah,
too.
Clearly. Yeah, no, and she can do that style so well. And I love that she also doesn't do that in her own music that much. She like puts her foot in the water, but doesn't, she's found her own thing, and it's so beautiful. And she's such a good improviser and just a good person and spirit. And so, she was
incredible.
It was like, as soon as I saw the lineup, I was like, all right, I'm going to see if Logan wants to sing a song with us, and see if Michaela.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Wait, did Logan sing a song with you? Did I miss that?
We did. And for the second show, the barn one, we covered "I'll Come Running" by Brian Eno with Logan Ledger.
Oh, that must be amazing.
It was great. It's the first time we've ever had singing on anything.
That's so great. And did you still open it up and jam on it too?
Oh yeah. I mean, not to the extent we do with our other stuff, but we didn't even have a chance to like rehearse it, so we were just kind of like,
no way.
Yeah.
That's so great. We should like those. We're thinking of like doing some limited record releases of some of those performances, either some splits or some. I think some of those would be an awesome record, because it's you guys are such a live band. As much as that kind of improv, you were able to pull off a live sound on a recording. Seeing you live is a totally different experience.
Yeah.
It's
way different.
Yeah, and you just I'm super confident in that, what you guys doing is going to translate, and it just takes time. It takes time, and hopefully
Yeah,
coming
I think,
through, coming through enough towns, enough times, right? Like that's
yeah,
gonna work.
exactly. Yeah, I believe in it, and I hope you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, those guys are some of my best friends in the world, and yeah, it just, and we always have approached it just like, all right, this stuff is like, I basically build it in a laboratory, so there's no point in trying to like do it the same, you
hmm
know. So let's just
hmm
like take the core of it and expand and just go wherever it goes. And if you have people that are good enough players, like,
are into it. Yeah, and you
and you
do.
try, yeah, oh, those guys are unreal. Yeah, so.
Unreal. And where does it go from here? You guys thinking of another record? Like now that you can get
Yeah,
together, like what's
yeah.
that? What's
Well, I'm almost finished with a new record. I'm probably like 90%
ooh.
finished. Yeah. So I'm just gone so much touring that it's like every time I get back, I'm like, all right, I gotta like focus. Um, yeah, I'm actually. I mean, I don't want to speak too soon, but I'm gonna have Michaela play some stuff on it, and that's kind of like the final piece of the puzzle. So we talked, like I like got to talk to her at the festival, and was like, after she played with it, I was like, why don't I just ask her to like play on this record that I'm like almost finished with? It's like, it'd be stupid not
Yeah,
to. So yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
that's
Is it
hopefully, yeah.
similar vibe? Similar kind of vibe or
It's I mean, yeah, it's like touching on the same like palettes as the other ones, but I think it's a little more laid back, a little more mellow. Um
cool.
Not quite as brooding. I'm just in a different place now than I was. So, yeah, it's a reflection of that.
I think that's so cool. Like you connecting your music to your, I mean, life. People, people do that through composition and such, but
Yeah.
the kind of music you do is it adds another layer to make it kind of atmospherically. The compositions are almost the feeling you're having, right?
Yeah,
That's like
it
they
truly,
really
it's, yeah, it is an extension of like what I'm going through, or who, I don't know. Yeah, it's because like I said, it's just like a kind of a daily meditative practice to just go and start working on stuff. And so I
and
don't,
to be in touch with
yeah.
that and kind of like make it part of a, do you still think of it as kind of part of a healing process? Do you like see it that way, like how,
Yeah, yeah, and I
or
think, I
health,
mean,
staying
yeah,
healthy, or just
it's
staying healthy process, I should say?
yeah, for sure. It's like therapeutic and just kind of,
Hmm
yeah. I don't know what. Yeah, it's hard to imagine not having this like outlet, because it's, yeah, just all always. And as soon as I get back from the road, it's like I just hole up in here, and you know, I'm sure my wife's like, "What the hell? Like, you're just playing music for the past month." But yeah, it's a different thing.
that's awesome. Yeah, I think that kind of is a cool way to kind of go full circle, because for us it's similar. Like we kind of want it to be this, we're thinking of it as in a similar way, like this a reflection of where we're at, where the
Yeah,
times are, and it's a living thing for us. Like we're we're kind of open to kind of things, and making it a reflection of like the community and the music world, and that's what actually allows it to kind of keep feeling fresh and new. And I think about that a lot. I was like, geez, if I was just in a band, it would be kind of like a for myself, I'd be kind of doing the same thing, but kind of orchestrating something that is the reflection of so many people's moment in time, where they are the essence of so many different worlds.
yeah,
No matter what we do in one year, we can always make it kind of a new reflection the following year. And being open and taking feedback and thinking and dwelling on the hard things that you don't quite feel good in you, and using that as inspiration, is the best you can do.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No, and having played it 2 years in a row, it's like the feeling was. I mean, the essence of it was there both years, obviously, but like, yeah, just came away with it with a completely different experience both times, both really positive, but just, yeah, totally different.
This year we really had it figured out in a lot more, because we redesigned the whole festival last year. So this was a
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do remember a few people being like, "It's kind of different this year," and then, but I will say, this year, I mean, I was like, sideman last year, so I wasn't really concerned with any of the logistical things. I was just needed to be at the place they told me to be. Mm-hmm. But this year it was flawless. It was great. Everyone knew what they were doing. All the volunteers were so nice and cool, and like the film crews and everything. It was great. Yeah, really. I mean, you like all this shit blurs together when you do it long enough, and so it's like there's like four festivals that I've played in the last 2 years that like you're like, wow, that they've figured something else out, and and at its best it like reconnects you with feeling like a human being, and you come away just being inspired by everything you see, and that's Pickathon is one of those things for sure.
Appreciate that. And I think that your music is similar. It's like a reflection. It's not that hard. It's in a lot of ways. I always tell festivals, instead of just trying to bust out like the most BS business model version of this, which is going to kill the industry, connect on think of it as art, like connect on some level that you're trying to be a reflection of what your values are and what's so interesting about the world. And it's not that hard. It's like treating people well, stuff like that doesn't always match up with the most easily commercial path, either in music or festivals. But if you do it, it becomes a strength. I'm hoping. This is what I'm like. This is my play on TV.
I hope so too. Yeah. And I just think if you stop trying to pander to what you think people want and just do what is inside of you and what like feels right, that people respond to that, you know?
That's right.
It's the thing it took me 10 years to learn as a musician, but like, it's crazy, but
well, I look forward to you headlining festivals with that kind of feedback. I mean, headlining stadiums with Billy Strings, like Rich Ruth and Billy Strings at Red Rocks.
If that dude can sell
happen.
3 nights at a stadium, then like anything's possible, right?
It's all what we're saying. It's all believing and just like bringing that kind of like conviction and a reality to it. People feel it. They know it. And, hats off to you guys. And so I'm really looking forward to the future for you. And
thank you.
And hope we can all reconnect in, more authentic ways going forward, because that's the only way that you can really feel, like a good human. So
absolutely.
Thank you for being my guest today.
Thank
Michael.
You so much
it's been
for having me.
Yeah, really great conversation, great connecting with you. And with that, I want to say thank you, everyone. This is the end of episode 19, and we will be back next week with another glorious episode 20, going somewhere else strange and unique and full of discovery, hopefully. So, hey, be authentic. It will work. Promise me and Michael. Right, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.
You've been listening to the Pickathon Podcast. This podcast is produced by Zale Schoenborn, Tanner McCullough, and Evan Throckmorton. Our artwork is by Travis Bone, and additional support by Ryan Stiles. The music you heard in this episode was by our guest of honor, Rich Ruth. The songs included were Marina, Taken Back, and the one we're riding out on right now, his latest single, Settling In. Thank you to the whole Pickathon family. And like Zale said, we'll catch you all next week.